Hi guys, Morning Brain here. Even have my morning coffee here. I was just, minding my own business, getting my day started, and lo and behold, DBD, good old behavior, has dropped one of the most game-impacting mid-chapters in recent memory. So, some people are saying this is going to be one of the best updates ever. Other people are lamenting the changes and think it's going to bomb the game. So, yeah, is there any truth to either of those opinions? Let's find out. Let's get started, friends. One of the biggest changes coming out of this mid-chapter update is the long-awaited Twinge update that has been kind of planned almost since the character has been created because, well, if you've played Twins for more than 2 seconds, you understand that they are one of the most buggy messes to ever exist in this game. Man, I get frustrated a lot hitting so many tail attack collisions with how bad the collision the maps are in Dead by Daylight and the 2 or 3 bugs that the Xenomorph has that are fairly consistent. I have never played a more buggy mess of a character than the Twins, which is, to be honest, a shame because running around as Victor, little man, big world, running around and pouncing on people is super fun. I just wish the character actually freaking functioned, which apparently is a big ask. However, behavior is going through and actually changing a lot about this character, so let's go ahead and talk about the changes. So there's a lot of nice little quality of life changes, mostly having to do with numbers like Charlotte switching back and forth between Victor is now half what it used to be, so now it takes a second and a half instead of 3 seconds. Unbinding Victor takes a 0.25 seconds less. Charging the pounds is slightly less as well. A lot of little nice quality of life numbers to try and make the character better. I remember when I would try to switch back and forth between the characters, I felt like I was there for an eon, so that's pretty nice. I like that a lot. There have also been a lot of new changes, which there should be in a rework. You can now recall Victor at any point after he is unbound, and the ability to change between Victor and Charlotte can now happen near a hooked survivor. Now, this may scare a lot of you, like the camping potential of this character just went through the roof, but the anti-camp thing is still a thing, so do keep that in mind. And I do think that behavior will start to roll back some of the I'm not allowed to place my power near the hook restrictions that they've put in the game now that they have an anti-camp mechanic. That being said, the anti-camp mechanic still doesn't really work to the fullest extent. I'm sure you've had a lot of situations where the killer's camping, but all your randoms and solo queue are swarming the hook, so there's nothing you can do about that, and you don't get to eat yourself off hook, which sucks. Also, the anti-camp mechanic has no awareness of what a ranged or projectile killer is, so if the Huntress is sitting outside the 16 meters and just ready to throw a hatchet, the anti-camp meter does not realize that that is a thing. So yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. Furthermore, and probably the biggest changes is that Victor no longer pounces onto healthy survivors. The reason I think they probably went through with this change is because one of the biggest counterplays to the Twins was people holding Victor hostage. So after you pounce a healthy survivor, the healthy survivor just kind of like go on a little adventure with your little buddy, and you will not have your power for a while until you had the recall Victor button show up on your screen. You can finally get him back. That's not going to be a thing anymore, so that's a buff to the character. Another change is that Victor can no longer be kicked after successful pounces in which they do not latch onto a survivor, which you may be asking, okay, well, if he doesn't latch onto healthy survivors, when does he latch now? Well, this is a new thing. Victor now only exclusively latches onto survivors that are put into the dying state. So it's quite literally the reverse before. The reverse, you pounced on people that were injured and latched to people that are healthy. Now it's backwards. Now, this is the part where you can actually crush Victor, because now that he is latches onto the person that's slugged on the floor, the survivor has to come up and kick Victor to get them off of them. A nice little cool thing that's happened in addition to this is like whenever Victor is holding on to somebody, whether it be in a locker or on the ground, Charlie gets a 10% haste effect. Otz is fighting his demons right now because he hates haste effects like, I hate everything in life. So poor guy, feel bad for him about that. But Charlie now has a little boost, kind of like Trapper does after they place a trap, to try and help them when they have knocked somebody down. The one thing I feel like is like a huge bummer is that like survivors near Victor no longer are revealed by killer instinct. I understand that it kind of has to be this way based on the new functionality of the killer, that obviously if he's hooked on a down survivor, then like, well, that would just reveal a bunch of people trying to go for the pickup and stuff like that, and that's just, I don't know, that would just make the already really strong slugging even worse. I get why, but like I don't know, I just find killers with like little killer instinct powers very cool, very neat. That's part of their kit. So seeing one of these that gets taken away is really sad. I remember doing a lot of match reviews for Twins, which is funny that we have a lot of Twins mains in the community. Hi everybody. It's kind of sad because I remember one of the big things we would tell people is like, use the killer instinct on Victor for information, and now that's just going to be kind of less of a thing, so that's pretty sad. There are some small changes as well, like the terror radius, the visual terror radius now having Victor grunts included, which is nice. I like that a lot. I've noticed that the visual terror radius is very finicky when it comes to understanding noises in the game that are not the terror radius, so adding some consistency to that is nice. and he does also glow red when he's able to be crushed. My total thoughts on this, this is there's a buff to the character, which is fine. I mean, like, nobody really played twins anyway besides our community and like Linksy and Pixel Bush and all that, so that's cool. But like, this potentially makes them even better at slugging, because now you're not even in a situation where you can go pick up the slug. You have to go kick Victor, which, you know, Charlotte knows you kick Victor because he goes ah when it happens, and then, you know, she has haste coming right at you. So it's funny because one of the things that Behavior said with this developer update was that they were trying to reduce the annoyingness of her slugging, while simultaneously, I believe, at least based on how this reads, makes it even stronger. So I will say my own opinions about slugging. I think it's the best out of the killer catch-up tools. Tunneling, and we'll get to that, camping, and throwing people in the basement, I feel like slugging is the least boring of those, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I feel like you made her slugging stronger because now Victor latches onto the person, meaning that if anybody goes to pick them up, they have to kick the guy first. That sends her an alarm, and she's already got haste, you know, heat-seeking missile towards you anyway. So like, yeah, her slugging is potentially getting even better. So make with that what you will. Another huge game changer. Blight's hug tech is being removed. Yes. And it's been confirmed that this wording, I improved collision detection to reduce cases from blight size off objects. Yes, that's what they mean. The hug tech is being removed. They just didn't use informal language here. They did confirm this in the Discord, that this does mean that the hug tech is being removed. I think this is funny because Behavior has ID'd the hug tech as what they consider to be an exploit and have said openly that they plan to remove it. It's just been a really long time since they said that. So I guess Dead by Daylight players just kind of assumed that that was never coming. But lo and behold, here it is in this patch. I think it's funny that people, one of the main things I see people talking about already on DBD Twitter is that, hey, hi YouTube, this is Will. He's not even a year old. He's my buddy. Yeah, as I was saying, the hug tech, one of the biggest things that I've seen on like DBD social media and Twitter is that it removed a lot of skill expression from the character. But honestly, I barely play the Blight and I can hug tech like nobody's business. Like, it's not that hard to figure out. You bounce once, and then on certain objects, or most of the objects, honestly, you look down and you slide off. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. So it's not a great amount of skill expression. And I think this is a better trade-off for a lot of like players that are trying to learn Blight or just play Blight casually, because the reason a lot of the slippy slidey collision that exists in the game for Blight's power exists is so people can hug tech and stuff like that. But that creates a lot of really, really frustrating situations for the casual player base who are wondering why they're sliding off so many different objects and that sort of thing. But now that's not going to be a thing because the Behavior no longer has to account for the hug tech when it comes to making changes about this character. Now it's just gone. So the casual players or people learning Blight are still going to have a good time. This might be a hot take, but I feel like good Blights aren't going to be unaffected by this. I feel like good Blights have more tools in the repertoire that aren't the hug tech that they can use to easily win their matches still. I think Blight is easily still going to be a top 5 character in the game. He may be 3rd, 4th, but like he's still going to be like a top 5 character in the game and still worth buying in 2024. The people that are saying that this is just a complete nuke to the character, like, I think it's a little bit of a reaction, and it's also kind of silly because they told you they were going to remove it anyway. That's why you get attached to it. The next change is the rework of Haddonfield. They are going through with the rework, which is pretty interesting. The first change is that they have updated the map layout and reduced the overall size. If you didn't know, Haddonfield was 152 square tiles. I know when Haddonfield first came out, a lot of people were like, wow, the map's really small now. And that ended up not being the case. 152 square tiles is fairly large. Keep in mind the largest map tile size in the game right now is 176 tiles, which is Azerov's and both Shelter Woods. So that's only like 20 tiles away from the biggest thing in the game. So yeah, Haddonfield was still fairly large, so they're reducing the size. I'm cool with that. Something more of like along the lines of like Temple of Purgation, or maybe even Wrecker's Yard, going down to that 140, 130 square tile range, probably would make it a lot nicer to play on, so I'm fine with that. Reduce the length of hedges and fences to create more openings. I think this is kind of funny because Haddonfield used to infamously have the Great Wall of Haddonfield, so very, very large and infamously long fences and hedges. I didn't really think these were an issue on the new version of the map, but I guess Behavior thought they were, so they went and adjusted that again. Cool, I guess. Now this is where we get to the meat and potatoes of the Haddonfield change. Adjusted various houses to reduce the strength of strong loops, reduce the number of houses in the map, but all remaining houses can be entered. What I think they mean by this is that they might have actually designed the yellow house because, well, if you remember, the yellow house was just kind of a prop and you could never go in that whenever that spawned. So maybe they added the yellow house and made a new loop. So that's kind of cool. But the main thing that is cool here is that the thing that makes Haddonfield so frustrating and so awful to play on is the double window setups. The double window setups are disgusting, and they make it to where you essentially can't play the game, especially as M1 killers, and even most of the M2 killer roster can't handle it. What does Huntress do against the double window setup? Nothing. What does Xenomorph do against the double window setup? Nothing. That's why I believe Haddonfield, for various reasons, is the Xenomorph's worst map, because, you know, while the Xenomorph usually can handle windows fairly well, they can't do anything about Haddonfield houses. So that, in conjunction with bad control station spawns and stuff like that, just kind of make for a miserable experience, and does for most of the roster, unless you're like Nurse or Blight. So just by looking at this image that's up here in the developer update, it looks like they replaced one of the windows with just a doorway. So now if somebody decides that they're just going to keep vaulting this window, you can just take the doorway. Essentially, it's a breakable wall that's already gone, which is basically how they just solve any issue with a window being too strong in Dead by Daylight these days, is just slap a breakable wall next to it. But I'm very happy they went the route of just adding the doorway instead of forcing us to break a breakable wall. I'm very happy to hear that. They're also, however, addressing the other obnoxious thing with this map, which is that for survivors, this map was also not fun because the middle of the street was an absolute dead zone. You had like 1 or 2 pallets, if that, and then that was it. So once you kicked those two, you were just in a massive dead zone, which made it super killer sided in the middle. So now they're trying to adjust that as well, which is by adding pallets and lockers around the edge of the map, putting more pallets in the middle of the map. That way there is more to actually loop. I like this better because I hate where behavior has gone with modern map design, which is just like create a bunch of really weird map specific tiles and that sort of thing that only play that way on that map, and they kind of just like leave the more traditional stuff that most people know, or most people who are new are still learning, just out the window, right? Like let's screw long wall jungle gyms, screw normal jungle gyms, screw long wall short walls, let's just make double window houses, you know? It's just, why? Why not put more formal tiles there? So the fact that we're seeing at least more path loops or path palette loops, that's more what I want to hear. My concern is just by looking through this image, it looks like there is a lot. Like you didn't need that much. You got to keep in mind that like you still have the main building and the houses you got to run through. So like you can chain these tiles with the main houses. So if we end up in a situation where just like people can run to the street, go back to the houses, back to the street, back to the houses, this is starting to sound like old Haddonfield. And if you live through old Haddonfield, you are entitled to financial compensation. Gosh, the updates do not stop coming with this. You thought these were already going to be some very impressive and scary changes. Oh, DS is back, baby. DS is back to 5 seconds as opposed to 3 seconds. Hey, we get a cool animation with it now, so that's neat. But wow. Out of all the things they could have done with DS, I predicted, unfortunately correctly, Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Perk comes to mind. Man, I hate being right all the time. Instead of changing this perk in a meaningful way to something that would be helpful for the health of the game, they just kind of said, screw it, let's just add the 2 seconds back, which is just like, I was always one of those people that believed that anti-tunneling in Dead by Daylight was not the strongest in its current state. It still had ways you could do it, but you had to essentially run like 3 or 4 perks to get it to like actually be a strong thing in the game. That being said, having to go through somebody's dead hard, going through somebody's off the record, going into somebody's DS was still an incredible time waster. So now that time wasting playstyle is going to be even longer with an extra 2 seconds. My idea, if you remember for this change, was to have the stagger when falling off the killer's shoulder be removed for DS. That way you can just move quicker, which will kind of be a nice little middle ground between 5 and 3 seconds. But now they just bumped it up back to 5. So you're just going to be in this situation again where you're getting offensively DS'd, even though you're not tunneling, and then that's going to suck. It's going to feel bad. And especially for M1 killers, this is going to be really awful. Because, like, if you're, like, Blight or Spirit and you get DS, like, whatever. You just, like, fly back at them, right? But, like, if you're playing, like Myers, Freddy, Trapper, and you get DS, like, good luck. Good luck, buddy. They've already made 3 other loops, and now you're just out the down that you deserve. So, enjoy. Enjoy. I don't know, man. I think Otts made a really good point about this the other day. DS is still one of the most run perks in the game right now. Despite its nerf, it never really lost its popularity, and I think there's a lot to that. I think that speaks to the fact that people still realize that if they can force the offensive use of this defensive tool, it can still be fairly good. And now it's going to be even worse. So, woo, I can't wait to be DS'd every 2 seconds in this PTB. That's going to be fun while I'm trying to figure out how new Twins works. Honestly, I might go in there as Xenomorph. I usually think it's cringe when people go into PTBs playing not the characters that were updated, but I want to see how obnoxious it is facing 4-man DSs all the time. Adrenaline in my soul, something, something, Cody Rhodes. Okay, so adrenaline, thankfully, is not being changed a lot, because I was one of those people that, despite the fact that adrenaline is incredibly strong, did not think it was an unfair perk. And believe me, I was having a really bad day on the game yesterday. I was being hit with adrenaline like every game. Ugh, it's terrible. So theirs is more of just like a small adjustment, kind of just a bunch of quality of life changes, which is what it needed, because despite the fact that adrenaline is really, really painful, it is earned, like pop, like pain res, all that stuff. Like, you do have to earn it. So it didn't need to be gutted. So a lot of really sensible changes here. No longer activates if you're hooked. I always thought it was weird that you came off a hook having in your shoulder and then suddenly you were just healthy. Doesn't make any sense. Reduces the speed boost duration from 3 to 5 seconds. So that's cool. Now they don't just get to zoom away and get like a subtle exhaustion perk on top of Addy as well. That's cool. And now it no longer wakes you up against Freddy, because gosh, we know Freddy needs as much help as possible. So let's stop screwing the poor boy, please.
Oh, you're getting the zoomies. Is it zoomy time? Zoomy time!
Wow, there are a lot of changes here, and man, are they all really intense. So now, with Ultimate Weapon, even though it says it's a medium update, is a pretty severe update, and not in the way that you think it was going to be. So let's go in and digest this. So Ultimate Weapon, instead of causing screams, now reveals the Survivor's Aura. Now, this does create some anti-synergy with a lot of long-standing builds having to do with this perk where it comes to like screaming and forcing people off things. Obviously, it kills its synergy with Deadman's, which is, if you guys have read the Xeno guide, there's a Scream build that has Ultimate Weapon in it, so I'm gonna have to go back in there and like change it and stuff. So thanks Behavior, for making me edit the guide. Thank you. But the problem with this, if you're already starting to put the pieces together, is now there's a lot of synergy with aura reading perks like Lethal, which make this last even longer. And here's the deal. The second thing is Ultimate Weapon was already extremely strong on characters like Nurse, like Blight, like Spirit, who, you know, because of their extreme movement abilities, now, you know, you get a scream and they can just heat-seeking missile right towards you. Now, not only do they get a scream of your last known location, they now get extremely accurate information on where they are, unless you have distortion. And God knows we don't need more people running distortion for no reason, but hey, here we go. So yeah, this kind of makes strong killers even stronger using the new Ultimate Weapon, and once again, kind of like harms weaker killers. Wow, that's almost like we just said that with a different perk change. Wow, that would have been nice if that was considered while making these changes. There's other kind of small quality of life nerfs to the perk. It doesn't last as long. It's down to 15 seconds instead of 30. And now the cooldown is a full minute instead of 30 seconds. Like I said, I feel like having more accurate information with a perk that does, you know, in all fairness, doesn't really have a very hard to pull off trigger state, which is just opening a locker and having a tear radius. Making that more accurate is not a nerf. It's not. So I don't know what they were thinking. I guess they're just like, well, everybody runs distortion anyway, so it's fine. But like, I don't get it. I don't understand. I understand that the idea was like, okay, well, if you make it auras, it no longer erupts survivor interactions. So you don't have like, you know, head popping pigs using it. They don't have dead man synergy, but like, I would argue that having extremely accurate information of where you are, especially in tandem with like Lethal, is going to be far worse than just them screaming. Far worse. I hope I'm wrong, but like, that sounds like it's actually better. Well, hey, if you liked Ultimate Weapon and you were scared about it getting nerfed, well, besides some number changes, you kind of got a better perk out of this. And some smaller updates that are a little bit nicer. Emblems stuff. You don't depip anymore, so that's pretty neat. I remember getting mad a lot when I get hard tunnel at 5 gens and then I depip. I'm like, what was I supposed to do there? Now you don't depip. Woo, that's cool. Kind of an L for people that want behavior to return back to the grade system when it comes to matchmaking, because that puts us even farther away from that. So sorry about you guys. The store is now going to be completely different come this update. They're completely overhauling it. They've added a whole lot of new tabs. There's also a little funny thing here. Killer Mori animations will now be able to be viewed in the store, which makes me think that they're going to start selling Mori. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. In terms of the store itself, it actually looks pretty nice, pretty clean. Usually I'm like one of those like stick in the mud people that's like, I'm very resistant to change. I'm a very like home buddy kind of person. So like, I'm always very suspicious of change, but this looks pretty nice. Pretty good. That's cool. That looks clean. I think we've had the same store for like, it's like what, 2018. So like, it kind of needed it didn't need it, right? Like it wasn't like a like, oh my gosh, DPD's gonna crash tomorrow if we don't fix the store. But like, you know, a cosmetic overall for this, it's kind of been needing it for a while. There's some minor riff stuff that doesn't really matter too much, just some quality of life changes to make things better. But in general, that is the full update for the upcoming patch. Wow, was it a controversial one? Man, this is putting a lot of people against each other. Survivor mains love the DS update and are just like, cry killer mains cry, and then like ultimate weapon and the twins and stuff like that is potentially going to make survivors really, really upset. So you know, characteristic of Haddonfield, the map that is the dead center of this update here, they found a way to make both sides upset, which is what they did with the Haddonfield design. So that's pretty cool. That's wild. That's crazy. Favorite continues to impress and scare and frighten and confuse a lot of people. But yeah, these were a lot of very, very game-changing updates. I'm interested to see how these go through on the PTB and how many of them make it live. What change are you most scared of, or what change are you most excited about? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you would like me to cover updates a little bit sooner, I usually wait like 24 hours just to think about everything. But if you like me just doing it in the moment, like every other DVD content creator and their mother does, please let me know down in the comments below. That way I can keep doing this. But other than that, that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. But I do upload daily, so I will see you tomorrow. But if I do not see you tomorrow, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.